the facial nerve palsy. So in facial nerve palsy we have two types of neuron. The upper motor neuron situated in the motor cortex. The upper motor neuron controls the lower motor neuron, that is the facial nerve nucleus situated in the level of pons. To be more specific, in the upper pons. The lower motor neurons emerge out and supply the face of the same side. So first we'll finish the lower motor neuron lesion, then we'll move on to the upper motor neuron lesion. So the lower motor neuron beginning from the pons goes outside and forms the genu of the facial nerve. There is internal genu within the pons. There is external genu within the petrous part of temporal bone. Then the facial nerve passes along the internal acoustic canal to reach the inner ear. It emerges from the roof of the inner ear, posterior wall of the middle ear, and ultimately comes out of the stylomastoid foramen, enters the parotid gland in the face, ultimately supplies muscles of facial expression. The muscles of facial expression of either side keeps these following things in the midline. Number one, the bridge of the nose, the tip of the nose, the angle of the mouth, and the chin, because they are pulling both the side to equal extent, so the facial symmetry is maintained. Just imagine your hand, both the hands you are pulling across the midline. Okay, so the left hand will not move to the right, and the right hand will not move to the left, because with the same amount of force you are pulling on both sides. So that is a function of facial muscles, to keep the facial symmetry and to show the expression of anger, fear, fright, surprise, smile, happiness, sorrow. So they maintain the facial symmetry as well. So what happens if at all there is a lesion of this lower motor neuron, one side, the same side for example in this case the right side, the muscles of facial expression on the right side will be paralyzed. So there is a loss of wrinkling of the forehead. The patient is unable to close the eye because orbicularis, oculi is paralyzed, unable to raise the eyebrow because frontalis is paralyzed, unable to squeeze the cheek, the nasolabial furrow is deepened because the muscles around the oral fissure are paralyzed, accumulation of the food in the mouth, and the angle of the mouth is deviated to the opposite side because of the unopposed action of opposite side muscles. That is the most important. We can also see the saliva drooping out because these muscles which help to keep the oral fissure closed are now paralyzed. So this is ipsilateral lesion of the lower motor neuron, affects the same side of the face. In this scenario it is right side lower motor neuron, so right side muscles are paralyzed. Whereas upper motor neuron lesion, the upper motor neuron not only supplies the upper portion of the facial nucleus of the same side, but also you can clearly see it supplies the entire facial nerve nucleus of the opposite side. So here we have the upper motor neuron on the left cerebral hemisphere controlling the entire nucleus of the right facial nerve nucleus in the pons. The upper portion of the facial nerve nucleus has got bilateral representation. Hence, the upper half of the face is spared if at all the lesion is on one side. Okay, because we have upper half of facial nucleus represented on both the side of the cerebral hemisphere. Both the side cerebral hemisphere getting stroke is usually rare and it can be fatal. So the person who is surviving usually has got a problem in the lower half of the face because it has got only unilateral representation. So you can see the lower half of the facial nucleus is represented only by the contralateral side. So in upper motor neuron lesion, what happens? There is a lack of stimulation of the motor nucleus, lack of control of the motor nucleus of the opposite side. But still the upper half of the neuron motor nucleus is supplied by the same side facial nucleus. So the upper half of the facial nerve nucleus will be spared. Okay, so this area where the black color is coming, that is damaged, but still this yellow color information coming from the same side is still intact. So we don't have any absence of wrinkling on the forehead, okay, because the upper half of the facial nerve nucleus is preserved. So in this case, in case of supranuclear lesion, we have paralysis only in the lower part of the face, that is loss of nasolabial furrow, accumulation of the food in the cheek, drooping of the saliva out of the mouth, deviation of the angle of the mouth to the opposite side because of the unopposed action of opposite side muscles. So in summary, lower motor neuron lesion of the right side affects right facial nerve because of the ipsilateral lesion and ipsilateral supply, whereas upper motor neuron lesion of one side, for example here in left side, will affect the entire lower motor neurons in the pons on the right side. But since the upper half of the facial nucleus has got bilateral representation, that will be spared, and only the lower part of the facial nucleus is now paralyzed. Hence the patient will have symptoms concerned with the lower half of the face only, that is absence of unable to close the eyes, absence of movement of the angle of the mouth, increased nasolabial furrow, accumulation of food in the cheek, and saliva drooping out of the mouth, and the angle of the mouth deviated to the opposite side due to unopposed action of opposite muscles. So that is in summary about the facial nerve lesion. If the facial nerve lesion is due to unknown etiology, we call it as Bell's palsy. So the facial palsy can be called as Bell's palsy. So this is in detail about this. Thank you for watching and learning from Logic Medico. Kindly subscribe if you are new to our channel, and don't forget to press the like button or the thumbs up icon. Thank you once again. Share this video with your other friends too. Thank you.